Welcome to Asphalt Talk. Are you an asphalt professional? Have you ever wished for interesting stories about paving to tell around the dinner table? Does the thought of creating a safe and aesthetically pleasing road make you warm and fuzzy inside? Then this is the podcast for you. Each episode will tackle real industry challenges to pave a smoother way for asphalt suppliers and producers. This podcast is sponsored by MAPA, the Missouri Asphalt Pavement Association. Founded to promote quality and accountability, MAPA has been serving the asphalt producers of Missouri since 1990.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Asphalt Talk. I'm your host, Dale Williams with the Missouri Asphalt Pavement Association. Today, we're sitting down with Kyle Phillips from Herzog Contracting to tackle the MAPA Board of Directors 2022 Board Retreat. So with that, I'd just like to welcome Kyle to the podcast. So Kyle, could you please tell us a little bit about Herzog and your position at the company?
Sure. Well, good morning, Dale, and thanks for having me on here. Herzog, we started as a paving company in Missouri in 1969, and we've grown into a lot of pursuits in the rail industry, but asphalt paving and DOT work in Missouri has always been in our blood, and so we're still at it here. And I've been here 28 years myself, and it seems like a flash in the pan for sure.
Absolutely, I understand. So could you tell us a little bit about your hobbies outside of work?
Work is, what my head stays wrapped around what's going on and what we're doing all the time. But as far as breaking away and doing stuff, I like to take the kids to Colorado and ski and hike and bike. They stay pretty busy themselves with dance. So I'm a dance dad, and we do a lot of that as well.
What is one thing most people in the asphalt industry don't know about you?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Gosh, I don't know. I guess I have 3 girls, and I'm a dance dad. They stay pretty busy. 3 teenage girls now. One's away at MU, but spend a lot of weekends doing dance things. And of course, I wouldn't have it any other way now that that's what I've experienced as a dad and everything. So they're my pride and joy.
So Kyle, could you tell us a little bit about why you're a member of MAPA and how MAPA best serves your company?
Well, sure. MAPA, Herzog was one of the entities that was around when MAPA formed. And obviously the idea is that we have an association that is prioritizing the legislative and specifications directly with MoDOT, who's trying to have influence in representing the industry and promoting asphalt, but also, making asphalt better. And I think since we've been a member, and since I've been engaged, we've gone from conventional designs to super pave designs, and now we're moving into, for performance specifications. And I think all of that, MAPA is just engaged in the conversation and helping to promote the proper changes and represent the contractors, but then also spending time with working out those issues that rise in changing specs. And I think that, MAPA is there in our mind to be the industry's voice. That being said, too, having been around MAPA for so long, one of the things that you figure out real quick is there's a whole bunch of folks that are members that are a lot like you and think like you do and have the same challenges. And at the same time, those folks, even though they're competitors, when we've needed things in the past or when other folks have needed some things, there's always a willingness to help our fellow contractor out. There's definitely a family there.
So Kyle, as the 2022 president of the MAPA Board of Directors, it was your opportunity to host the annual board retreat. Going into the retreat, what did you hope to accomplish?
Well, as I was just saying, the way we interact as fellow contractors, kind of with the same kind of issues. My objective was to talk about the things we always talk about, and that's promoting asphalt, but then also just to spend some time away with folks and talking about the things that we do and how we make ourselves better. And sometimes that's a little bit of comparing notes on processes and things like that, and learning from other people. Spending time with the board is always a good thing.
So Kyle, the format of this year's retreat was slightly different, as company owners, along with their designated board representative, were invited to the retreat. How do you think this changed the dynamics of the meeting, and would you consider it a success?
Well, I do consider it a success because I personally had the opportunity to spend some time with company principals that aren't on the board and that I've known for different periods of time, and I think it was an opportunity for as many things as we have going on. I think it was important and fruitful in having some owners represented so that see their perspective on certain issues, which is really consistent with the boards, but just adding more voices to the conversation was a lot of fun.
So coming out of the meeting, the board identified several goals. I'd like to gather your input on those.
Okay.
We won't go through them in any particular order, but one of the things we spent some time with talking about was trying to recruit some of the producers that are not currently members of MAPA.
Sure. Yeah, no, and that's always what we're trying to do as a board and as an association is to represent the industry in Missouri and provide value to our members of all types. We've wanted to pursue um, some producers that aren't presently members, and so we've got a plan to have some conversations with those folks and see if MAPA can provide value to them. I feel like associations in general, not and MAPA is not excluded from this, but I feel like associations in general make a lot of effort, do a lot of things, and then there are entities that kind of reap the the benefits of what we're doing, and we'd actually like their perspective and help engage them and use some of their thoughts in how we make our decisions. So we'll pursue some and we'll see if we can add to our ranks.
So I think probably one of the things that had a big impact on our industry this year was the Governor Parson put together a low volume road program of $100 million from general revenue that was targeting improving the surface condition of low volume roads. What are your thoughts on that program, and what do you think is going to happen in 2023?
Well, I think the interesting thing about the $100 million is we all don't realize how far $100 million can go in overlays of these roads and of these lettered roads, low volume roads. There's a lot of miles of road that get covered for $100 million, and it came at a time when obviously inflation and other things were affecting fuel, and the cost of fuel were affecting pricing, and it's definitely success. We like the effort that's being made there, but we'll get a whole lot of roads done, and it's taken the burden off of MoDOT to have to address the needs of those roads in the future, or for the foreseeable future. So that's a good thing. And as far as looking at future opportunity, I think that successful program could result in funding for a similar type of program again. And I think our industry will definitely deliver the program that they've been contracted to deliver and deliver it in the time frame that we've been asked as contractors to deliver it. It's a it's definitely had it put a lot of demand on aggregate suppliers in the regions of where a lot of the projects were. I think our industry is rising to it, and it looks like it's going to be successful.
Kind of staying along that same lines, another thing we saw this year was the governor's cost share program. I know in past years that's been funded at around $25 million, and this year it got bumped up to 75 million. And for everybody to understand, that's a 50-50 cost share. So increasing that to 75 million is $150 million worth of construction work. It may not all be asphalt, but there's certainly an opportunity. And I just want to get your thoughts on the
Well,
governor
I think
increasing
that
that.
I think the best thing about that program is one, well, that it's essentially helping to prioritize projects that other entities and or private development um, have, and so it is a 50-50. But the nice thing to understand about that is the other 50 that isn't coming out of state revenues is actually coming from outside. I believe this is to be the case primarily outside of MoDOT's funds And so it's really it's 150 million of essentially new money to add on top of the existing program. So and so most of those projects are centered around economic development. So that's always a great place to be spending money if it looks like it's going to generate returns. So that's the idea there. So definitely like to see those kinds of share programs increased, and I think they've had a record number of applications from what I understand. I think we're expecting some of those uh, awards or to be announced fairly soon here.
And now a public service announcement from our sponsor, May Create Design. Google Translate doesn't work for web designer to paving company translations. You say hot mix and it thinks you're talking about the latest snack craze. Wouldn't it be nice to work with a designer who knows the difference between binders and bitumen? Work with folks who have been speaking your language for the past 17 years. Visit maycreate.com. That's MAYE create.com. Because if you think your website sucks, so does everyone else.
Oh, great. Earlier you mentioned a little bit about balanced mix design and performance specifications. From your perspective, how do you feel the new performance specs and balanced mix design are impacting projects in Missouri?
Well, obviously time's going to tell in the performance long term, but from every indication that we're seeing, we had one of those projects this past year, and from everything we saw on the project, volumetrics were good, turnaround and densities were great. So these changes where you're actually targeting a performance for rutting and cracking, I think make a big difference. I think and I'm not our quality control guy, but I've got a general, a pretty good understanding of how all the volumetrics work. But what I will say is, I think we do know that for a long time we've had strong mixes, but looking at the performance of those mixes, they were strong. They don't rut, but they're probably susceptible to cracking. So as we balance these designs and try to positively affect the cracking, we've figured out where we can balance for lack of a better term the cracking and the rutting, and we're getting, I believe we'll have better performance long term.
So we're going to shift gears a little bit, Kyle, and talk about a couple of bills that we're tracking as MAPA for the 2023 session. One is the engineer's estimate, and there's also some liability protection bill out there. You want to just share some brief thoughts on how you think those bills will impact our industry?
Well, yeah. So the engineer's estimate language, the way I read it, and I believe it's identical to some legislation that made it through the Senate and the House a couple of years ago. It was on a bill that was ultimately vetoed by the governor, but I think there were a lot of other reasons. It just happened to be on that bill. But the idea there is that MoDOT would open and publish an engineer's estimate at the time of bid. And we see that for a lot of agencies across the country. We work nationwide. We see it. We see it with a lot of municipal owners, county owners, and we think that transparency into the process is always a good thing. And so we are hopeful that will make it to the governor's desk, and that it ultimately becomes part of state statute.
Any thoughts on the liability protection?
Yeah. So with regard to that, that's also something we've been tracking a while. The idea there is that we'll be afforded some of the same immunities that the DOT has when we're out there being their agent, and I think we can look at a lot of cases where contractors have been out there on the roadway doing exactly what we've been asked to by the state per their plans, and it we don't necessarily escape the possibility of litigation, and so the idea is that we would as their agent have that be afforded those same protections.
So Kyle, what's been the most rewarding part of serving on the MAPA board of directors and as our president?
Well, like I said before, the industry and the people in it have always been my favorite part of being on the board and knowing folks that basically are out there doing making the same kind of efforts and trying to do perform at a high level, and so it's for me, it's always been rewarding just in the networking opportunities and meeting people, and then of course we get to go tackle issues, sometimes hard issues, but we figured out that those efforts are worthwhile, and so the association and the work that it does is where the rubber meets the road as far as engaging the issues, and so I'm proud to have served on the board, and obviously this is my second run at being president, and I'm just thrilled that for the opportunity to be able to do it.
As we wrap this podcast up, do you have any parting thoughts on where you think the industry is headed in the future?
Well, this last year, if the last year has shown us anything, it's shown us that we don't always know where everything's going. We've had a lot of cost uncertainty this year. We've had a lot of things working against us. It feels like with regard just from supply chain issues and availability of even equipment parts for repairs. I mean, just all kinds of challenges. And as far as where we're headed, I mean, I think our future is bright. Our industry, the DOT here in Missouri, the work we're doing as a construction, not just asphalt. I mean, I think that we have a good opportunity with the funding and the different grants and things like that we look at, and I believe that there's definitely opportunity. It's opportunity to do our best and be successful, and so we'll just keep chugging along. And so no, I think we're headed in the right direction as the industry, and are at least for the foreseeable future, and so that's great.
Well, I'd like to thank you for being here with us today. I'd also like to thank everyone for listening to Asphalt Talk, the podcast by and for asphalt professionals. If you enjoyed listening and learned something, please leave us a review. Your review will help us connect with other professionals like yourself so we can keep this conversation going.
Google Translate doesn't work for web designer to paving company translations. You say hot mix and it thinks you're talking about the latest snack craze. Wouldn't it be nice to work with a designer who knows the difference between binders and bitumen? Work with folks who have been speaking your language for the past 17 years. Visit mayecreate.com. That's MAYE create.com. Because if you think your website sucks, so does everyone else.